you guys, it's me, Laura. I'm a homeschooling mom of 3 kids, ages 3, 8, and 10. However, during the course of this unit study, my 10-year-old is going to be an 11-year-old. And we are exploring with unit studies this year in our homeschool. So I am filming this at the beginning of our Middle Ages unit study. We are so excited to jump in, and I'm going to share with you what we're doing for our unit study. And then I'm going to share with you some clips of and some pictures of our unit study, and at the end I will share with you a little bit about the things that worked well, the things we loved, the things that didn't work well. So I am filming this now, the day before our unit study starting, and you won't see this until it's over with. So I'm going to head over to the table, tell you a little bit more about the unit study, and I can't wait to dive in. I'm really excited about this unit study because it's an interest-led unit study. I decided to do this unit study for my 8-year-old, keeping him in mind. He absolutely loves the Middle Ages. He's obsessed with it, and he loves sharing and talking about it with the rest of us. He knows so much. I think we're going to learn a lot from him, but this will give us a chance to learn a little bit more all together, for him to share his knowledge, and for us just to all spend time together learning about something that he really loves. So this is the European Middle Ages. So this time we are going to have 2 books that are read aloud for this unit study. I try to vary the types of books that we do for our read alouds over the year. We just did a biography, we did some fantasy before that, and this time we are going to be going a little bit in the classic. This is a rewrite of Robin Hood, which most of them are, but I would still put that in the category of classics. So we'll be doing that, as well as Castle Diary, which is different because it is in a diary format. So Castle Diary, the journal of Tobias Burgess, is about a boy who goes to his uncle's castle for a year to train as a page, and it's got so much information about the daily life of living in a castle. It's got the good, the bad, and just things that kids may or may not have thought about. So I think the kids will really enjoy this one, and it's not super long, so it shouldn't take us too long to get through it. And then this is just a retelling of Robin Hood I found that I felt was probably appropriate for my kids' ages. It's got lots of beautiful illustrations in here, and so we will be reading that as well. Now, my hope is that we have a trip planned in the middle of this unit study, and I'm hoping we can finish this book before the trip and this one after. The timing may not line up exactly right, but I'm going to do my best at least to try. I also make sure that we have a nonfiction spine with each of our unit studies to kind of tie things together. For this one, I'm going to use the Usborne Internet Linked Medieval World, and we're going to go through most of this throughout our unit study. We won't be doing all of it. This is an excellent resource that covers more than just European Middle Ages. It covers things in Africa and Asia and all over. And because this is an interest-led unit study and my son is not as interested in that, we will touch on some of it, but we're not going to be spending a whole lot of time. So we'll read 1 or 2 spreads of these a day, depending on the day. And Usborne has quick links, so if there is some information that the kids are particularly interested in, we will go online to those quick links. Sometimes there are articles to read or videos to watch, and you can print out pictures sometimes as well. But this is kind of going to be what gives us a proper background as we study the Middle Ages, to see how everything went together, and it's more than just knights and castles, and so this will kind of give us a basis to look at some of those things as well. Now, here on my lesson plan, I'm going to make these lesson plans available for you on the blog post that corresponds with this video, and it will have this here, and any changes that we make over the course of the unit, I will be sure to update that on there as well. But we also have, for each unit study, some things that we do in our morning basket. And we usually have a trivia game, so we are going to be doing medieval times. We did have this in a morning basket earlier, but we only went through the easy questions. So this time we're going to make it through the expert questions, and we're also just going to kind of review some of the other stuff as well. We don't play this as a game, we just ask the questions and read them as a family and try to talk about them. And it's usually a good way to start our school day, to get our wheels turning in a very fun and easy sort of way. So we will be doing that. They've just got the questions on the card, so we just will read all of the questions there and talk about them. We also like to include a logic game to go along with the morning basket, and this will usually take turns being the primary person to solve, and then if we need help, we will ask each other for help and kind of work to solve this puzzle. This game comes with my wall pieces. I've got some 3 blue knights and 4 red knights, and I'm going to set up my board the way that it says here, and as you go, farther, you have less guidance as far as setting it up. So it starts pretty easy and gives you some walls and moves on. So I'm going to start by setting up my board the way that it shows here in the picture. So I'm going to put my walls, and I'm putting my 3 nights right here. So then I have to work to try to figure out how to get these other walls and these other knights on the board in such a way that my blue knights are safe inside the castle walls and my red knights are outside of the castle. And I want to keep this in the castle as well. My 2 towers need to be in the castle. And then I can put the red knights anywhere out here. And that is the solution. I think this game is going to be really fun, and it will give us a chance to work together and support and encourage each other. And again, it's another way to just kind of wake up and get into school mode for the day. I also want to say here to excuse any cow noises that you hear. We have some cows that are just outside our house for a couple times a year, and this particular herd is very, very loud, and there's not really anything I can do about it. So I'm sorry for that. The next thing that I have on my planning sheet is something new to this unit study. This is not something that we've done to this extent before, but it is math. So especially for my 10-year-old, I'm trying really hard to incorporate math fully into the unit study. And my plan is to have a lesson or activity that I do with both boys, and then they'll do their own practice and review based on what they're individually learning in math. I am going to be using these circumference books. Now, some of these books are just review, and they will go in our book basket and we'll just read them for fun. But others of them have new concepts that we're going to teach and work on with my boys for math. And this is going to be a great way to tie math into the topic that we're learning. And I was so excited because circumference books are just absolutely perfect for this. We have Circumference and the Roundabout Battle, Circumference and All the King's Tens, Circumference and the Off the Chart Desserts, Circumference and the Fraction Fair, Circumference and the Great Knight of England, Circumference and the Round Table, Circumference and the Dragon of Pi, Circumference and the Isle of Imiter, Circumference gets Decima's Point, and Circumference and the Sword and the Cone. And most of these we already had. There were just a couple that I was missing, so I went ahead and purchased those. I've taken them and I put them in the spreadsheet. I actually have 6 different lessons here. We do have 6 weeks of our unit study. However, I realized that some of these concepts might take longer, or some of them we might move through quicker. So we're just going to kind of play that part by ear. So these numbers, I took all of the books and I put the corresponding topics that are taught from the Math on the Level curriculum. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, I'll leave a card up there and a link in the description below where I tell you a little bit about the Math on the Level math curriculum program. So I went through and I paired them all up, all the books up with the concepts that they taught. And I looked at the ones that my son hasn't mastered yet or hasn't learned yet. And we will be focusing on those books. I also included activities from a math book that I will actually need to purchase. I had to return it to the library because we might be doing some activities from there. And then I also found this resource on Teachers Pay Teachers, and it doesn't include all of the books, but includes a lot of them. And so it's just got games and activities that you can use to practice and to teach based on the circumference books. So it talks about the Dragon of Pi, All the King's Tens, Great Knight of England, Sword in the Cone, Vikings Map, Roundabout Battle, Off the Charts Dessert, First Round Table, Isle of Imiter, and Fraction Fair. So all of those are included. And then you can see there's usually an information page, and then they'll have a few worksheet pages in there. So this one, Radius had to measure a lot of circles. Using what you learned from the story, explain circumference in your own words, then use a tape measure or string or ruler. Fill in the table with your own circumference measurements. So you're going to write down what the object is and the total circumference, and then answer some questions about the objects that you found. Help Radius get the medicine to circumference. Roll the die and move forward the number of spaces. If you correctly solve for the missing value, you can stay on that space. If not, go back to where you were. First player to reach circumference wins. So you just work through this. It's got the diameter is 12, so you're going to find the radius, find the circumference, and all of that. So you're doing some basic math in a fun way. So I have incorporated those into this as well. And what I've done is I've taken, these are lessons. So this is how I am going to teach each concept. So we'll read the book, of course, and then these are math antics videos that I found, or concepts, things to read from the Teachers Pay Teachers thing that's from Math Geek Mama, from her little bundle, or just whatever I have gathered to help teach that concept. And then I've got some practice activities. These are things that Samuel can do to practice the skills a little bit more. We have games that we can play, and we also have real world examples as much as possible. I tried to fit those in because that's really important for him. So we might do some cooking, we might do some building, we might do other stuff to do real world. And this is vocabulary. This I've included mostly for me so that I can be sure to be using this vocabulary with the kids to help them understand the concept more. And then some of them have a few other little things that I added. So I have that for all of the lessons, and we will simply, like here I have stuff that it says ABC Mouse, that should be Adventure Academy has a game called Deep Sea Treasure, which talks about fractions and decimals, so they can play that. So anyway, I've just got all of this on here. And the plan is just, like I said, to take it however long it takes to learn a concept. And I will add anything that I've added, and I will make this available on the blog post that corresponds as well. And a couple other little things that I have to help with this unit. I got these rainbow angle circles, and so they just have the different measurements here. Right now they've got a sticker on the back, but we'll take that off so you can see what 60 degrees looks like, and 90 and 120 and so on, and kind of put them together and give a better understanding of the different angles here. Of course, we will be using a protractor. This is really hard to see on the camera because it's clear, but we're going to be using this protractor and practice measuring for that. And then this math shapes book from Usborne. Let's see, can I get it all in the camera? This is a book that we already had on our shelves, and it does talk about some of the concepts that we will be learning. And the cool thing about this is that I believe it is internet referenced, so I can go look at the Usborne quick links and see what other activities there might be to help some of these things make a little more sense for us too. So I think that will be, so see, like here's turns and angles. So this is just another way to interact with the math concepts. As I mentioned earlier, we will be going on vacation midway through this, and we will also have a little field trip. Now, I certainly do not want to make the kids do school while we are on break. However, because this is a high interest topic, I thought it would be fun to include some things for this for our, we have a plane flight, and then we have an 8-hour drive, and then we're going to make the 8-hour drive again and a plane flight back. So it's just quite a bit of traveling. And so I wanted to have some things for the kids to keep them busy. Now, not all of the supplies in this category have come in yet because our trip is still just a little bit away, but for now I will show you some of what we have. So first we have some audiobooks for the trip. The Door on the Wall is one that we already have on audio. The kids have listened to it a few times. They might like to listen to it again in the context of learning more about the Middle Ages. So we'll definitely have that one available. And then there's also Adam of the Road. This is one that I have not read yet. They have not read. It looked really good. But it's again kind of more about the daily life of the Middle Ages, and I thought that this was something that they might enjoy on their trip. And I also want to bring read alouds that we can do as a family, just because there's often times that I can read to them, or when we're going to bed or doing whatever. So The Apple and the Arrow, I read this I think when I was pretty young, but I don't remember a whole lot about it, but I thought it would be a fun one to pull out and do as a little read aloud on our trip. And then the rest of these we have actually read before, and my son really likes them, and so I thought they'd be something fun that we could bring, that if we read them, great. If not, we don't, because there's already the context there. There's not a lot of pressure, but there's Roll and Write, Future Night, Roll and Write, Brand New Page, and Roll and Write at the Joust, and it's a trilogy, and my kids really enjoyed those books, so we will certainly be reading those together at some point, probably on the trip. I also picked up some activity and coloring books. I've got a few more coming from Book Outlet, but I got the Knight in Armor stickers for the boys. I think These might be a little bit difficult for Lily, but they might let her join in too. So I got them each one of those. These, Timothy likes me to print them on cardstock so that he can color them with markers because that's his favorite way to do it. But this has all sorts of information about knights and castles and all of that. And this one is particularly about armor throughout history. So it's got all these famous pieces of armor and explains a little bit about them and where they're from and when they're from. And this is another one that I think he will really, really enjoy. So the next thing that I'm going to talk to you about is book resources that we have. Now, this unit study is different from other unit studies. We literally have an entire shelf of Middle Ages books in our library because Timothy loves them so much. So I'm going to show you some of the main books, and then all the rest of them I'm actually going to include with the corresponding video that's just about books. This one is Usborne's Look Inside a Castle. I think over the years, if I had to pick an absolute favorite book, this would probably be it. But it's nice because it has a story about Adam, who's helping Sir Walter. He's a page, and one day Adam will become a knight himself, and it talks about Lord Robert and Lady Margaret and Sir Walter, and it just kind of tells the story throughout, but it shows all these different places of the castle and like tournament rules. And I think this book was a huge part in triggering this interest in my son, but he really, really enjoys this one a lot. This is another one, and there's a series of these books that you can get various, like I think there's A Year on a Farm and there's all kinds of stuff, but this is A Year on a Castle, and it literally follows a calendar year on a castle and all the things that might happen, and there's a lot to look for. So usually on the side of the page, there's different things for you to find in the picture, and there becomes more of them. And my kids love looking at these books and these pictures and trying to see more of the story. There's so much visually going on here, so many little side stories and things that you can see progress throughout the pages that are really fun. And it definitely does have some information here that's useful as well, as it tells the story of this castle and what is happening throughout the year. Okay, so I know I said that Usborne book was my son's favorite, but this is actually his ultimate favorite, and I'm going to need to replace it because it is falling apart, because he reads it and we read it to him so much. But this is The Making of a Knight, and it literally follows the story of Sir James when he goes to the castle to train as a page, and it follows him through being a squire and all the way up to being a knight. The illustrations are beautiful, the story is very engaging, but it's packed with information, and this is one that he loves, and so he's going to love an opportunity for us to read it together more. This is a new book that I bought specifically for this unit study. When I was talking to my mother-in-law, who's an English professor who kind of specializes in this time period, and really a little bit after, but during the Reformation and all of that, the crossover time period, I guess you could say there. She said that she had read the Robert the Bruce to all of her kids when they were growing up, when she was working on her doctorate. And she got me the actual book, but I feel like it's a little bit heavy. But this is a picture book of Robert the Bruce. It also mentions him in the Usborne spine that we have for our nonfiction spine. So this just tells the story of Robert the Bruce in a way that the kids can understand. So this is one I specifically purchased based on my mother-in-law's recommendation. She didn't recommend this exact book, but talking about Robert the Bruce in general. So that's going to give us a little bit of context there as well. This is one I happened to find that is a little bit more fun. It's not necessarily medieval specific. It just talks about the castle. And this is one I thought that my toddler might be able to appreciate as well. And I think it's a lot about conquering fears and that things might not always be what they seem, and they're not always as scary as you might think. And that's actually really perfect for one of my kids. So I'm excited to read this together. And this unit study is just a perfect opportunity to pull it out. This book is a really beautiful book. It's called Dragons, Legend or Dinosaurs. This is published by Master Books, and their whole philosophy is the idea that dragons and dinosaurs could be kind of one and the same. And I thought this was an interesting perspective to explore with the kids. And we can talk a lot about how different people view dinosaurs and their take on them, and talk about this particular view of dinosaurs, and if we agree with it or if we don't agree with it, or what we think about it and if it makes sense. And I just thought it would be a fun way to kind of explore an opinion that's not very popular and see what we think, and just a fun way to look at dinosaurs and dragons, which are things that my kids are both interested in general too. But it's got a lot of very interactive elements, little books and little things that you can pull out, and I just think that this will be a fun one and a good way to get some conversation going as well. This is another really popular book in our homeschool. Let's see if I can get it on the screen a little better. But there's several in this series. I think there's like Egyptology and Piratology and a bunch of different ones. I found the Nightology one and I knew that I needed to get it. But it's just this continuing story that goes through, that talks all about being a knight, and it's very interactive as you're a part of the story, and there's just so many good things that it talks about. And because it's so beautiful, like this is one that kids are really interested in. It's probably too much to sit down and read all at once, but this is one that when we'll read it, we'll read 1 or 2 spreads at a time, and it's just got so many really awesome things inside. It talks about the evolution of armor and all the different layers of the armor, and anyway, just super cool resource to have as well. And I think these are available at a lot of libraries. I'm not sure, but it's just a really beautiful book. See, it's got all these fold outs as well. This is another kind of interactive book that you might have seen listed on my channel before. This isn't one that's necessarily filled with a lot of great information, although there is good information here. Talks about, like in this case, the feudal system and the Lord of the Manor, and I think it has some actual famous battles and stuff in here. But the fun in this is trying to spot the things. So it's got the things to spot and it gives explanations of them, and you're trying to find them, and it comes with this magnifying glass to make it easier. Now, this is something that when I sit down with my kids, we will read it together, and of course we'll be doing more of that. That's the great thing about this unit study, is that I will be available to read more of this kind of stuff to my son who loves it, to both of my kids really, because my other kids are interested in this stuff too, just not to the same extent. But we can sit down and actually read these and look for these things. But I found that what my kids do is they just love looking at the pictures and trying to figure out all the things that are going on, daily life in the castle, and food and feasting, tournaments and entertainment and all the things. So this is another one that the kids really enjoy. And the last book that I'm going to show you in this particular video, now remember all of these will be listed on my blog post, and I will have a whole separate video on all the books that we use for this unit study, but this is The Hawk of the Castle. This is about medieval falconry. I absolutely love this book, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. And it's a great way to talk about falconry, which was so important during that time to hunting, and just tells the story beautifully. So this is another one that we will be using and that I very highly recommend. When it comes to projects, I'm doing things a little bit different. This is an area that I'm really trying to still figure out as far as unit studies go and how to make it work. But last time I felt like things were a little bit too structured. So this time I am leaving things a little bit open-ended. I do have something scheduled for pretty much every day. However, I am not married to these ideas. So these are things that we will do if there's not a rabbit trail the kids are interested in, or if there's not something else that they're wanting to do. And what I did, I created a workbook for this unit study. Now, once we're done, I will be making this available for purchase, but I want to go through it with the kids and make any changes that we need to or update it. I have 2 copies of everything here, but it's just a workbook on European Middle Ages, so we can start with talking about what we want to read, and it's got some videos and activities and just all kinds of stuff in here to keep the kids engaged. And ideally, with the ones that they want to do, I've got more special paper like this, and they're going to build kind of a scrapbook, I guess. It's kind of a cross between notebooking and scrapbooking and just a lot of other different kinds of things that I've put together. And I've tried to pick resources that I think they would be particularly interested in. And there's some days, for example, that I'm leaving pretty open-ended here on biking. Like, these are different things that they could learn about, they can read books about or watch about, and we can find out more about them. We have stuff on medieval armor. And anyway, I will go more thoroughly into this after we've used it and kind of share it with you. But the idea is that we are trying to create opportunities for them to do hands-on stuff in a very low-key way. And I've tried to make this specifically to meet their interests and to do things that I think that they will actually really enjoy. And if they get down to it and don't want to do all of these, that's totally fine, but I have them ready to go in case we need them. I also have as well this book, Days of Knights and Damsels, an activity guide, and Lori Carlson has these guides for different time periods and different places and lots of different stuff. So I went ahead through the book and I picked out a few activities that I thought that the kids might enjoy, and I'm going to try to have what we need on hand available for these activities so that if they want to do one of them from the book, we have this as well. So like I said, the projects, I have something scheduled from our notebook that I made for them every day, but we don't necessarily have to do that. We're just going to kind of see how it goes. We're going to do something fun and exciting. To me, this is all about really giving them a full immersion experience, and if I don't have it planned for, it just doesn't happen. So I'd rather plan and not do it, but I don't have the kinds of expectations this time around that I have in the past. Now, another thing that you're going to see here, and I actually meant to show this to you earlier. Now, I do have these sheets, which are pretty important, and we will be doing them when we're at the corresponding spot in our nonfiction spine. But these are pictures of people or events that we're going to be reading about that are pretty important. And the kids are going to add them to their timeline book. I have just a very little bit about them, and we'll see if there's any other information that they feel is important to add to these pages before we put them in their history notebooks. And to get the images, I honestly just did a Google search and printed out the images. And that is all that I did. This one came from the Usborne Quick Links, I think, but most of these just came from a Google image search. And this way they'll be ready to go and we can put these in their binder. And again, it will help them connect this with other things that were going on during that time in history. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is language arts. Now, Timothy, for his language arts, is for the most part doing his own thing. The kids really enjoy Grammar Galaxy, so I do plan those out and I try to incorporate them into the unit study as much as I can, as well as into some of these other aspects of language arts. And also we do vocabulary together, so I have gone ahead and picked vocabulary words either from our read aloud or from our nonfiction, you know, what we're reading there. And each week the kids will get to pick whichever vocabulary word they want to study. We talk about how it's spelled, we talk about the parts of the word, we talk about the background of the word, all of those kinds of things. And we look at the word in context to see if we can figure out the definition. We look the word up in the dictionary, and then we will take the word and, actually I changed the order of this. We will look at, based on the context, what part of speech the word is. We'll look at antonyms and synonyms and different word forms, if there are any for that word. And then we will have them draw the word they can either write a sentence and illustrate that, or they can illustrate something that shows what the word is and write a separate sentence. Doesn't matter, it's kind of flexible, but we will be doing that. And because I'm picking words, I try to pick words that will help them either relate to or understand the read aloud better, so things that come up a lot, or I try to pick words that give them a better understanding of what we're learning in general, but they ultimately pick which word they study. Typically they like to pick different words, which is fun because then that's two words we learn a whole lot about, but every once in a while they'll pick the same word. So we'll do that together, and then Timothy does his reading and his spelling all on his, it's a completely separate program that we're doing. So I am taking some classes from Rooted in Language, and I expect that some of this language arts stuff will change as I learn more about how to do it. But for copy work for Samuel, we will be doing passages from the book, and this is where a lot of the meat of his language arts is going to be. So first we'll be doing an activity every week that is more of a comprehension and a deeper understanding of the passage. And then we will have the copy work, the specific passage that we're working on, and we're going to look at the grammar, we're going to look at the spelling, we're going to look at, not the grammar, we're going to look at the spelling and the words and the definitions and all of that kind of stuff. And then the next day we we'll be looking more at grammar, and whatever we're learning in Galaxy Grammar, if it applies, we'll certainly be exploring that at the time. We'll be reviewing stuff, we'll be talking about punctuation, we'll be talking about all kinds of stuff, and so we'll be doing that on the second day. And then the last day of the week, he will do this copywork in his notebook and be applying all of the things that he's been learning throughout the week. That is what I have planned for this unit study, and I'm eager to see how things go. But now you can just keep watching and see right now what we liked, what we didn't like, and see a few clips of us enjoying this unit study.
Catapult, crossbow, and poleaxe. What do you think I should use?
Which one do you think?
I'm definitely going with a sword. That's one of the most important.
Unfortunately, it's been a little longer since we finished our Middle Ages unit study than I usually like for there to pass before I do a wrap-up video, but I am going to do my best to share with you our thoughts and feelings and how things generally went with this unit study. Now, the first thing that I want to say that is so sad is that due to coronavirus, lovely coronavirus, our trip got canceled. So we weren't able to do all of the fun trip things. We weren't able to go see the Middle Ages feast, dinner theater. However, we're still planning on doing that. We still have our tickets. We can use them at any location at any time. So we still plan to do that at some point. So that certainly threw things off and was kind of a bummer. One of the things that was a little bit surprising to me in this unit study was how much the kids really enjoyed this medieval world book. We did not do every single page in here because there simply wasn't time. They would have loved for us to do every page in here, but there really is just about the right amount of information to not overwhelm any of the kids. Some days we just did one spread, some days we did a couple spreads, but we often did the quick links that were included, and the kids really enjoyed the websites and the videos that were attached as well. And this is a book that if you already have the Usborne Encyclopedia of the World, these are the same pages that are in there for this time period. What they've done is they've just taken out stuff in between, just pulled the medieval stuff, and it's a full 8.5 by 11 inch page, which is a little bit bigger. So that's the only difference. But for us, it was nice to have this separate, just as one source that was easy to pull from and not get too distracted by all the other stuff in there. So we really, really enjoyed this resource as our nonfiction spine. As far as read alouds go, these are the two that we did. We did Robin Hood by Nikki Raven, and we also did Castle Diary. And I mentioned before that I was a little concerned about doing a diary style for our read aloud, and yeah, it didn't go over again well. So I think these are really good books for kids to read on their own, but it wasn't the best for a read aloud. I thought it would be better. If I had it to do over again, I would have pulled one or all of the books from the Roland Wright series. We have read these before, but everybody loves them, and I don't think anybody would complain about pulling them out and reading them together again. So I would have definitely chosen this and maybe even all three of the books, but you know, live and learn, right? So the other one that we did was Robin Hood. This has beautiful illustrations. This is definitely a read aloud. I would say I definitely would not read this aloud with kids under 8. The language is just going to be a little bit difficult for them, but I would really say this is ideal for 10 and up. And the reason why is because, I mean, it's the story of Robin Hood. There is hanging that doesn't actually happen but comes close, but there are some images in here that are a little bit much, I think, for little kids. There's also one, let's see if I can find the other one, right here. So those I wasn't really expecting, but I think that overall my kids absolutely loved this book. They really liked this one a lot, and I felt like it was well done. I was really impressed with some of the retellings of Robin Hood. You never know what you're going to get, but I felt like the language in this one was really good, really beautiful, lots of great vocabulary, very well written, and very easy for the kids to listen to. They never wanted me to stop when it was time to stop reading for this one. I think another big thing that I don't necessarily have anything to show for this, just my little moving hands, is the kids really enjoyed the books that we had in our book basket. I think just giving them the freedom to kind of choose what books they had and to do what they were in the mood for and go with the flow. We learned so much, and there were so many topics that we branched out from our book basket books. It was just really definitely one of the top things that we enjoyed in this unit study, and there's so many great Middle Ages books, so that is great. So another thing, this was the first unit study where I really incorporated math, but we really used the circumference books very heavily, and I also used this resource from Math Geek Mama, and it was a hit. I would say that I'm still figuring out the cadence, and I realized I was really trying to do too many concepts for one unit, and so I need to kind of dial that back, but I am learning, and I know that I will do that for the future, but tying it into the unit study just made it a lot of fun for everybody, and was definitely something that I am going to be doing in the future as well. Another important thing in our unit study was the activity book that I created ahead of time. These were activities that we had planned. Sometimes we ended up getting lost on rabbit trails and didn't do the activities, but we really enjoyed them when we did, and I've put some of them now into this little presentation folder so the boys can keep it with their supplies. We didn't end up actually doing all of them, but we did a lot of them. This was fun. We really enjoyed making the pottage, and recipes in general were really fun for us in this lesson. So this, I think, really, for this particular unit study, because we didn't have one cohesive read aloud, it really tied everything together for us and really made it much more enjoyable. We also had a feast that was a lot of fun, and the kids really enjoyed doing the feast together, and that was just such a great way to close our unit study out. And one thing that I do want to mention, as I'm trying to learn Instagram and doing better with Instagram, so as we're doing our unit studies, feel free to follow me over on Instagram, and you can see in real time what we're doing, like before I even post any of this stuff. And that's kind of a fun way that you can see day to day, like where things are going and how they're happening and how we put all of this stuff together, if that makes sense. But that's pretty much what we did for this unit study, the top activities that we had going on and the things that didn't end up working out very well. Thank you guys for sticking with me to the end of this video, and that pretty much wraps it up for our Middle Ages unit study. I want to make sure to remind you to check the links below for my blog post. There will be tons of extra resources. You can download the lesson plans I used, you can download the activity book that I made, and just have links to all the books and everything there. I also wanted to let you know that for our next unit study,
I'm not going to make this big, huge video like I've been doing. There were certainly good reasons I had for starting that way, but it is so hard for me to get everything together in one video, and this is a very long video, as you can see, so I'm going to start breaking them up a little bit, but I will still have everything collectively in one place on my blog, where you can just go to one blog post and get all the information you need, and I'll use playlists and things like that. If you're still with me at the end of this video, I would love to hear what your kids are interested in right now. If you were to create an interest-led unit study for your kids, what would the topic be? Thank you so much for watching and for being a part of this channel, and I hope that you have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.